Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Cloud Lounge. I am Enrico Signoretti, your host and moderator. In the Cloud Lounge, we transcend boundaries of a mere podcast. This is a live talk show or a dynamic roundtable discussion. Our discourse is inspired by thought-provoking articles, compelling news sourced from the vast realm of internet, or anyhow from multiple sources. Topics may encompass the domains of cloud computing, artificial intelligence, data management, security infrastructure, IT strategy, brilliant minds that are shaping this industry, or even captivating anecdotes from our interaction with various teams at Cubbit, partners, and customers. As the host, it is my responsibility to initiate this conversation by providing a session context and initial commentary. Then we open the floor to the microphone for your comments and opinions. These live sessions are recorded and later shared across our channels. Ensure that, sorry, ensuring that you can immerse yourself in the Cloud Lounge experience even when you are unable to join us in real time. I hope I did a better job this time because last time my audio was, really, really, let's say, inconsistent in terms of levels. So I'm trying to be more professional here. And so, without any further ado, I want to start this conversation, and I want to talk about cloud repatriation versus cloud optimization. And this is a topic that is really hot in the industry for several reasons. One of the biggest reasons that brought us talking about cloud repatriation in the last few months, actually. So this is something that happened mostly between mid 22 and now, and it happened mostly because I think we had a couple of reasons. One is that most of the enterprises adopting the cloud had to revisit their plans during the pandemic, and the pandemic brought a series of issues, including and challenges, including working from home. You had to digitalize a lot of processes. This digital transformation that we we never experienced it right really in many enterprises. All in a sudden was necessary, was mandatory, because there was no possibility to access the office, there was no possibility to connect with the others. So we started spending a lot in cloud computing resources, and now and many of these migrations happened with a sort of let's say lift and shift. So this is a type of migration that you do when you don't really refactor or engineer your application, but you just take it as is and you move it to the cloud. And of course, another reason for which the cloud has become so expensive, and not that it's not expensive, but actually, so we started using the cloud in the wrong way. It's something that we experienced it also, in the at the beginning of the 2000s. I mean, 2000, between 2005 and 2010, when virtualization really became something. So we saw the first virtualized environment in the early 2000s, and then when companies became more let's say confident about this technology, they started putting more and more in production. All of a sudden, we saw this VM sprawls. I mean, so the additional VMs for everything, and while in the past was a single server, physical server, maybe running an application in the Unix environment, was already a single server running multiple applications. Windows had at that time a few issues with multitasking and multi-tenancy. So it was less, less applications for a single server, but actually still was feasible. When we started with virtualization, we started having a lot of servers, each server with a single application, single workflow, single everything. So, but the resources allocated for each single server were, uh, more than what was really necessary. So, of course, you know better than me that, when you virtualize something, you have to put the operating system, some storage. We want to put enough storage not to reboot the machine, just to add additional storage. At that time, it was not possible to do, many operations without rebooting these virtual machines. So we ended up with uh, tons and tons of virtual machine, unnecessary virtual machines at the time, and and many people started thinking back again at this type of technology, why it was wrong, and why we had to revisit the way um, um, sorry, to revisit the way we were working with with sorry, I'm trying to invite a friend of mine to the podcast. Is out of the system. Sometimes LinkedIn has issues with invites, and and the interface is still somehow inconsistent. But again, to my previous point I was discussing, so many mm, of these practices were totally wrong. So we started consolidating, we started optimizing, and we started you know putting more efficiency in the way we were creating this virtual environment. The same thing is happening today. So we are spending too much and on virtual servers, on infrastructure in the cloud, on services in the cloud, because we are not really focusing on what is really necessary. In the last year, at the KubeCon last year, and also this year, and any other major event that I saw in the second part of the year, was a lot about FinOps. And FinOps is a new practice. Practically, you start thinking more about the cost, about the processes, on um, about um, about how you are implementing and managing this system now. So at the same point, at the same time, um, many enterprises understood that cloud is not for them, and especially when it comes to uh, workloads that are very very stagnant. I mean, in terms of they are not really growing, then there is no spikes. Everything is very stable. In many cases, it's much more convenient to go back to the to an on-premises solution. Even now, especially now, actually with Kubernetes, it's very easy to port your application back. And of course, as you know, data is the biggest problem. So I invited again my friend Max to join us. Let's see if we can see him online. And of course, if you want to join this conversation, just let me know. I will promote you as a speaker, and we can go from there. So, as I was saying, the main issues today is to think about this. cloud repatriation or cloud optimization. That's the thing. So on one hand, we have companies really thinking about repatriating their workloads. Why they are doing that? Because of course the cost is too much. And on the other hand, there are companies trying to do some cost optimization. So they are trying to reduce the cloud spending. Cloud spending means also trying to reallocate some of the workload back on premises. So as you can see, we need to find a balance. The biggest problem again is data. What are you going to do with the data? Because one of the biggest problem with the hybrid cloud and multi-cloud strategies is cloud is the creation of silos. Okay, a silo practically is a storage repository that you can access only from an application, and maybe you have other application needing to access the same data, and because it's difficult to create a single data domain that spreads across multiple clouds, then you are forced to make copies of this data, and this creates data governance problems, security problems, and management problems, and of course cost problems again. In the articles that we shared in the past days alongside the invite for this session, there are a few surveys that are really interesting. For example, one of the most interesting ones is that for many people it's really, really tough to read a cloud bill, and it's true. I mean, there are a lot of consultants that are making a living by interpreting these cloud bills, and so from this point of view, they are FinOps expert before FinOps was a thing. So for many enterprises, it is becoming really, really tough to understand what they are spending and why. And now we have a lot of these tools that are helping users to improve the spending, to optimize virtual machines and services, to smooth some workloads, etc., etc. At the same time, this is not something that will last forever, because from another article that I read not a long ago, I found out that there is a huge problem after a few months. So at the very beginning, you save a lot of money, and so if this is a one-time action, FinOps is a very good thing. After that, you have to put some effort to keep these new tools up and running and remain efficient. So at the end, you're moving somehow some of your sysadmin activity, or somehow your engineering efforts in a more business and a more let's say finance effort, but actually the struggle is there anyway. I have Massimo joining us. Hey Massimo, how are you today?
Hey, doing good, thank you.
So Massimo, thank you for joining us. I know you had you had to struggle a little bit with the invite and everything. So Max is an industry analyst, friend of mine. He was part of my team when I was at GigaOm, one of our best analysts. He's very specialized in storage and infrastructure. So I don't know if you heard me talking at the beginning, but I was talking about cloud repatriation versus cloud optimization. and I'm very curious to know your opinion about this topic. I know that you are very active in with cloud storage, and a lot of vendors and customers are asking you about this
Mhm.
topic.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I thank you very much. I joined a bit late, but I heard most of the discussion. So, it's a very broad and interesting topic. Optimization versus repatriation, because you you have some data. You may have various reasons or drivers why you want to move your data or not. So imagine you have some cloud workloads and the data is adjacent to those workloads. For example, if you do if you're using GPU instances, for example, and you have a lot of scientific data, genomics, whatever, which is there adjacent, it doesn't really make sense to repatriate the data if the data set is cloud adjacent and you're doing stuff in the cloud. However, as you said, you have the way of thinking about optimization. What can I do? Is the data stored in the right place? That's one of the other one of the things that you need to take into account. The other one is you may have different drivers for repatriation. So you mentioned cost, and cost is definitely a thing that you want to have under control when you're spending in the cloud. The more data you have, but you may have also regulatory reasons or policy reasons why you want to move the data out. You may have some regulated data or some personally identifiable information in your data set that you were not even aware is there. You, the larger the organization, the more complex it becomes to control the data, who does what with the data. So imagine you have a data set which is in the cloud, you have a lot of patient information there which has not been cleaned properly for whatever reason. What do I do with that? So if you have the opportunity to clean the data, well, of course you should do that online. But if it is data which has somehow been processed and is in such a way that you cannot really access it, so what do I do now? You may need to repatriate it, maybe to clean it, and then to think where you want to put it back again. I mean, this is a totally arbitrary example here because maybe it's not as complicated as it sounds, but that's kind of the idea.
So, and you recently published a large report, actually a set of reports around unstructured data management, and in the past we worked on these reports together.
Mhm.
And what are the trends in your opinion? About management of these hybrid, let's say, situations where you have these data coming stored in the cloud, data storage stored in on premises, and maybe also at the edge lately. So you are creating data at the edge, and you have to move it, where the application is, for example. So what is happening? I mean, from the data management perspective.
Yeah, so yeah, you're right to mention the report on unstructured data management. It was there's been quite a few changes that we've observed in that area. For example, one of the things that we have observed is that before you know, whatever is related to compliance, classification, etc., was not. I mean, it was in a way important to have that, but this is kind of gaining momentum somehow. The more regulation is going out on that, and the other thing is all of the things which are related to how you want to orchestrate your data, the data movements, right? So it touches back to the point that you mentioned before about repatriation versus optimization, which is certainly one thing that you may want to do is pull back your data from the cloud. But the other thing is whether you don't want to kind of orchestrate where the data is placed, making sure that it's always sitting in the best place. So it's not that maybe having some kinds of data in the cloud is not a good idea, depending on where it is placed, what is the data type, the cost of the storage that you're paying in the cloud. But you may have let's say, a very valid rationale to instead put that data in the cloud. No, it all becomes to where is it placed, what is the importance, is that critical or not. So this is some of the observations that we've made.
And do you think that I mean there is a better understanding from the user's point of view about the fact that data is the key more than the application or the users? I mean, in my and this is now put it this way. Now I'm really biased because, of course, I work for a storage company, a cloud storage
Mm.
company in particular. So, but I see that there is a trend for which finally users are thinking about more data, and I call it data first opposed to cloud first, where everybody was thinking about, okay, go to the cloud, everything goes to the cloud. But talking with users, especially in Europe, now they think about, okay, where is my data, and where do I need my data, and then in function of that, I think about what I put on top of it. So my applications, my
Mhm.
user access, etc., because uh, uh, also because multi-cloud is a thing. I mean, many of these companies are thinking about multi-cloud lately, and again, it's a cost
Mhm.
optimization issue sometimes. Sometimes
Mhm.
it's strategy issue, but the idea is that they want to take most advantage from some technology that are available in one cloud and not in the other, for example. And in other cases, they have a very, very distributed organization, so they need to access data from everywhere. So
Uh,
go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, no, I was going to say it's really a matter of awareness. There are some people which are very acutely aware that the value resides within the data, and that you should, build around the data and not try to force the data into a mold somehow about and make it fit into an existing application. But then it also comes, so you need first of all to have this awareness that not everybody has, and then you need to also have the skill sets to build that around the application as well, right? So you will see maybe even in large organizations very different approaches to a similar problem. We've seen that, for example, with some very edge, not edge as in edge, but more like HPC stuff, where the data scientists which are working on that were very acutely aware of the workload that they have, and that they needed to find or build the tools to process that properly. Whereas in other cases, it is really, a monolithic approach. I have my application, my VM, the infrastructure, and I need to run this application here and the database there and so on. So, I mean, hopefully things are going to evolve towards this data-centric view. I think that's the only, I think the only valid view, right? Because if you want to somehow make the best use of your data and make sure that you have the best use of all of the components which are available, you should think first about, okay, here's my data. What is the best way to process it? Now, the counter side to that is that you also need to have people which are good to somehow build these tools, these applications, and all around the data, or use things which exist already somewhere in the market. I mean, you may not necessarily need to rebuild an entire application just because you have some data somewhere. So you could go cloud native, build containers around. If serverless is the way to go, then you could think about a serverless approach to that. Why not? But it's definitely the way it should be handled, I think.
Yeah, and also having a different approach about data also simplify the security aspect. I mean, if you think about data first and not perimeter or application or something, you have to protect the data because this is the only asset that bad actors are interested
Mm-hmm.
in. I mean, and so from my point of view, having a better data management also implies having a better data security. That's the other aspect. Are you doing any research around data security lately?
We actually have something that we drafted before you jumped, on the other side. We are preparing something around security focused and structured data management. We think it's really an essential aspect here, of data management in general. So that's something that we are working on and hope to let's say publish sometime this year, definitely.
This is really cool. And if somebody else wants to join us in the conversation, just raise your hand. There is a button in your user interface, uh, and we will promote you as a speaker. So in the end, I mean, cloud optimization versus cloud repatriation is really something. I mean, to some extent, we are talking about the same thing, right? I mean, when I think about FinOps, I think about common sense. So that we spend too much, we spend to really, uh, really in a with bad behaviors in terms of practices, or we just migrated everything, and then without thinking too much about the cloud. The cloud was easy, no, right? You spin up new VMs, you spin up new services. I mean, it's so easy, it's infinite, and then you discover later that you are paying for it. And on the other hand, a full data repatriation doesn't make sense. I mean, you want the cloud because the cloud is more flexible, but it remains more expensive. So in the end, I think that when we talk about cloud optimization, we are talking about a partial repatriation when it makes sense, if it makes sense. Anyway, we are going towards a hybrid and multi-cloud. So with this, you know, uh, balanced approaches always paid off more in our industry. I mean, also in the past, it's somehow history repeating itself all the time. So, uh, do you agree with me, or do you have a
No, no,
different?
I definitely agree with you. I think, in the end, as you said, not everything can be repatriated. So you have to look into it and think about, if I need to maintain the data in the cloud, so where do I want to place it? Is it in the right place? You've made the organization you're working for has made choices in the past. Sometimes you were part of that. Sometimes you inherit it. I think it's like everything in life. I mean, especially when you're putting a lot of money into something, you need to reevaluate from time to time and look and decide whether it's still the good option or not. Yeah? You don't want to be moving your data around every week, but you also need to be conscious about where your data goes, whether the costs that you're spending, what seemed like a good idea 1 to 5 years ago is still a good idea right now in the end.
So, if you have I mean, if you have to make a list of the priorities of your clients when it comes to data, what are what are they looking for today? I mean, better data governance, better data management in general, data security, data sovereignty. What are the most important things?
So what it depends on the organization you're for. So if you're going to be in a regulated organization, finance, pharma, etc., the focus is always going to be first on fulfilling regulatory requirements. So that could be, as you said, compliance, sovereignty, security. Security is a given for everything, I would say, in the end. But then, if you look at the other steps, I think it really goes down to the level of maturity of the organization. Again, if the organization is really mature and has good practices in place, then they're very likely going to focus first on data management capabilities. I mean, in the sense of what can I do more with my data? While others, which may not have this level of maturity, they may be focusing primarily on the cost aspect because
Yeah.
they're not
So,
looking at the thing holistically eventually.
yeah. Okay. So let's say that if you are new to this business in terms of also clouds and everything, so probably you are more focused on cutting the cost today. But if you're looking at in long term, and you're looking at with more, let's say, a much more mature approach, then at that point you're looking at reusing your data, or not wasting resources to manage it.
Yes, exactly. I think it's a matter of value that you're getting out of it. Short there. I mean, you want definitely to save costs, right? So it's not something that you are going to remove out of the equation. But if you're into a short-term view, you're going to be into kind of cost-saving mode and where can I get my data the cheapest. If you're looking at a more strategic approach, then you will certainly look at all of the added value around the platform eventually.
Yeah, but sometimes maybe this is implied, but cost cutting is not always the best ways to save money. I mean, investing
Yes.
sometimes makes you back much more money. So that's the thing. But
Yeah,
anyway,
that's why I said it's a short-term view, because in the end, you're moving numbers around, but you may be making a bad decision in the end. So
yes, indeed. I mean, when we started moving to the cloud, I mean, people were thinking, right, the cloud is cheaper because I can get rid of people in the data center and things like that. And now, wow, they are spending more than we were spending earlier. And now, when you try to hire these guys back, they found a better job, maybe with the hyperscalers, and they said, "No, I don't come back." So maybe a wiser approach at the beginning was better. But anyways, so Max, again, thank you very much for joining me today. It was a very nice
it
conversation.
was a pleasure. Thanks.
I will have you again. You and Ariane. Ariane is your partner in crime with your own company, and also in GigaOm of parts of your team. So I will have you back soon, and especially when you have something interesting, like new reports, or something that you want to share with us. Just let me know.
Yeah, thank you.
And for the rest, thank you again for joining us today. As usual, we have recording this episode, so you will find them on our podcast, The Cloud Lounge, available on Spotify right now. So it's already available. Just give us 5 stars. I'm trying to do this podcast thing that I always heard when I listen to this podcast. So 5 stars, likes, whatever, I don't know, but do your thing. And thank you very much. This is a wrap for today. Thanks again for tuning in. Bye bye.
See you. Ciao.